everyone, I'm Georgia and this is The Sound of Georgia. You know, uploading my videos on Wednesday seems to mean I miss out on a lot of important Julie-related dates. Only by a few days, actually. This is what happened in my video a few weeks back, the one that came out on the 3rd. I was actually talking about that Monday, which was the 1st. Well, I was actually talking about a different date, but there's a reason I was doing it around the 1st. Click the card to watch it, it's brilliant. And the same thing is happening today. I am filming this on the 22nd, which is the date in question and the reason I am making this video, but you won't see it until the 24th. And the reason today is important is because it's the anniversary of Star. I've talked about it a few times in my earlier videos, but Star is a musical Julie Andrews made in 1968, and as of today, the 22nd, it is 50 years old. At least as far as its US release date, and we'll get back to that in a minute. The film's a musical biopic of Gertrude Lawrence, and it follows her life from 1915-ish to 1940-ish. For those who don't know, Gertrude Lawrence was a big actress in the beginning of the 20th century from about the dates mentioned earlier. So from World War I-ish to the beginning of the 40s. Actually, it was the beginning of the 50s because she died in 1952, but the film doesn't cover that. And the 22nd of October 1968 was its release date, but only in the United States. It came out much earlier pretty much everywhere else in the world. It first came out in the UK on the 18th or 19th of July, and it came out in Australia a few weeks before it came out in the US on the 4th of October. The reason for having its world premiere in London was supposedly because of the fact that both Julie and Gertie were from the UK. And in a way their lives, at least their early life, was very, very similar. So because Gertie was an actress and the biggest and most important part of her life was her career, the film just follows her life, which basically means it just follows her career on the stage, which means the film is basically 3 hours of Julie singing. Gertie's biggest relationship with anyone was the stage.
Unfortunately, my darling, you can't take a whole audience home to bed without being accused of immorality on rather a grand scale.
But despite how awesome 3 hours of Julie Andrews singing seems, the film was actually a big flop. After all, it was 1968 and musicals were on the way out, and you combine that with the team that made The Sound of Music, and yeah, no wonder it's not going to work. And yes, it was the same team that brought you The Sound of Music. Obviously we have Julie in the leading role. Both films were directed by Robert Wise and produced by Saul Chaplin, and they were both made by Fox. When Julie decided to do The Sound of Music, she signed a 2-movie contract with Fox. This was obviously number 2. In fact, it was such a flop that, however briefly, it was pulled from theatres, and they changed the name. For a while it was known as These Are the Happy Times, but when it eventually came to television it was under the name Star. At the same time the name was changed, it was also cut dramatically, bringing the runtime to 2 hours, but its original title and original runtime of almost 3 hours were eventually restored, and that's the version you find everywhere now. So now that we've talked about all the little details, let's talk about the actual film itself. Because even if it is just Gertie's life and 3 hours of Julie singing, there are some details we need to talk about. Gertie's right-hand man, best friend, I don't know exactly what you'd call him, was Noel Coward. And so Noel is a very big role in the film, and he's actually played by Noel Coward's real-life godson, Daniel Massey. And Massey appeared in one of Noel Coward's films in 1942 called In Which We Serve. So while Noel remains pretty untouched by the story, they didn't see a problem with fictionalising a lot of other people. Gertie's second husband, Richard Aldrich, is also practically untouched, but he and Noel are about the only ones. In the film, Gertie's husband is named Jack Roper, while in reality his name was Frank Gordon Howley. But despite Roper being her husband rather than Howley, her daughter Pamela remains the same. Not that we see much of Pamela because, as I said, Gertie's biggest relationship was the stage. But if Gertie's husband being changed slightly wasn't enough, in reality Gertie had a long line of lovers. In the film it's basically condensed into one. Anthony Spencer was mostly modelled after Captain Philip Astley, considering what he does with Gertie in the film, but he's also a composite of most of her other lovers, or at least a placeholder for them. I'm really not sure what Charles Fraser's role is in the film, or even if he existed at all, but I imagine it's much the same thing. Now, I'm not an expert on Gertrude Lawrence's life, So apart from changing around and fictionalising all the people she had relationships with, I don't know how well it resembles her life, but it seems to resemble her career very well from what I've read. She seems to have done all the shows we see her do in the film, and Noel's always there on the side being amusing. And on that note, I actually think Star is really, really funny. I think just like Victor Victoria, it has some of the most singular funny moments in all of Julie's movies. The aforementioned quote in the clip of Noel is one of my favourites. This is also another one of my favourite moments.
There is absolutely nothing you could say or do at this moment which would make me laugh.
Marry me.
What?
I mean it. I want you to marry me. Through the gales of hysterical laughter, did I hear him propose to you?
Yes.
Well, then he's certainly not a coward. Either he's the bravest man ever born, or he has the most superb sense of humour. For his sake, I hope it's both.
But I think my favourite moment of all is this one, when they're rehearsing for Private Lives.
Come and kiss me, darling.
I beg your pardon?
That's your line.
Oh, thank you very much.
That bit just makes me crack up. And, well, Gertie's an actress, Julie's an actress, and Noel Coward's the only person who can play the piano properly. So, let's talk about the songs. I mentioned this in my video last week, but my favourite song overall would be Do Do Do.
My heart begins to hum. Dum-de-dum-de-dum-dum-dum. So do what you done. You done. You done. Do what you done before.
But I also really like Saga of Jenny. In fact, when I was little and I had Sound of Music on VHS, which is suddenly making me feel very old, one of the previews was 4-Star, and the clip was the beginning of Saga of Jenny. And so when I first watched Star, I remember sitting through the whole thing waiting for the Christmas song, which was Saga of Jenny. But Saga of Jenny isn't actually a Christmas song. It just mentions Christmas in the first verse, and that was all that was shown on the preview. Before we see Julie as Gertie sing Saga of Jenny, we see her sing My Ship, which is also from the same play, Lady in the Dark, and that was Julie's favourite song in the whole film. I also really like it. But I love the position, and someone to watch over me, and Someday I'll Find You. And the first time I listened to the soundtrack of The Boyfriend and Poor Little Pierrot, I went, oh my god, the other half of that song from Star, I finally get it! So I love Parisian Perro, and Limehouse Blues. I love them all. As I said, 3 hours of Julie singing. And when Julie sings, I love it. So I highly recommend picking up the soundtrack if you can. I don't know if you can find it anywhere else, but link in the down below. And if you haven't seen the movie, go out and watch it. And on that note, that's everything I've got for today. I'm hoping to make these sorts of videos into a little bit of a running series, so whenever there's a special Julie anniversary date, whatever, I'll try and do a video on it. But for today, I hope you enjoyed. Let me know in the comments if you've seen Star, what's your favourite bit about it, what's your favourite song, do you like it at all? If you haven't, I strongly recommend that you do, especially if you like Julie Andrews singing. I cannot stress that enough, that is pretty much the whole movie. Off the top of my head, I think there's one scene that she's not in. There might be another one, I can only think of one. Feel free to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in my video next week. So long, farewell!